Hello, folks. It's Wendy with you now.
I guess we're live now.
Yes, and Kathy,
Welcome
take it
to
away.
the New Bern Now podcast. Good afternoon, New Bern. My name is Katherine Adolph. I've been asked to facilitate the interview of New Bern candidates running for mayor in the upcoming municipal elections. There are 4 people on the ballot to be mayor of our beautiful city: Tim Harris, Jeff Odom, Max Oglesby, and Toussaint Summers Jr. 3 of the candidates are with us today on this podcast. Mr. Oglesby did not respond to the request to be interviewed. I'd like to thank each and every one of you who is running. Campaigns take money, time, and dedication to serve the citizens. Being a public servant in an elected position is not easy, but fundamental to the smooth operation of our democracy, in this case, our city. Again, I thank you deeply. With that, let's proceed. I will ask the same question of each candidate for their response. We will rotate who goes first as the questions proceed. I'm going to start in alphabetical order. There will be a time limit to each question. You don't have to use the full time, but we are going to cut off anyone who continues to talk beyond the time limit. And we have somebody in the back office who will do that. So I would ask each candidate to respect these time restraints. So with that, let's just move into a few questions. The first question, and you'll have 3 minutes, is to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be New Bern's mayor. And we'll start with Mr. Harris.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Harris.
I cannot hear you.
Am I muted?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear
cannot hear
Tim.
anybody.
We
I
can
can
I
hear.
can't hear anybody.
We can hear Tim. You can't hear.
I cannot hear anybody.
Okay.
Wendy, can you hear me?
I can hear you. This is interesting. Okay. Well, you ask a question. We'll let Tim, and then is that good, Kathy?
Wendy, I cannot hear anything.
Okay. Well,
We're having
let's.
technical difficulties.
Okay. What we're gonna do?
Hello?
Okay. Close. I'm going to remove Kathy and I'm going to call her. In the meantime, Tim, please continue with the introduction. How does that sound?
That works for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Let's start this over. Hello, New Bern. My name is Tim Harris. I am running for mayor. I live here in Ward 1 in the Ghent section. I have lived here in New Bern since 2016. I am an IT engineer by trade. I like to tell people, if you've ever seen commercials for the cloud and cloud computing, I'm the cloud. I'm also a man who wants to be your next mayor. And I'm going to tell you why. The position of mayor is a man who is a person, man or woman, who represents every single person in New Bern. Unlike the aldermen who represent individual wards, unlike city administration and services who represent their various functions, the mayor is the only person in the city elected who represents every single person in New Bern. And it's important because of that we have a mayor who is capable of, who has the skill and experience and leadership necessary to bring all of those wards together, all of their aldermen together. One of the themes of my campaign has been that we need to put an end to the factionalism and the infighting that we have seen in our city government, in our city, on our board of aldermen. We need to have a mayor who's capable of bridging gaps and divides and herding those cats. This is something if we do not get a handle on how our board of aldermen and how our city and how its internal relations work going forward, we're going to be years or decades away from solutions to the problems that the city is going to face over the next 4 years in this next administration of aldermen and the mayor. This is why I am asking for your vote as mayor of New Bern, because I have the skill, the leadership, the experience, both in business, the experience in serving my nation and my community. I'm a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. I have many of my early years out of college after the Marine Corps and then going to college. And many of my early career years were in social services fields, serving minorities and poor communities, underrepresented and underserved. These are life experiences and skill sets that enable me to leverage so that we can not only keep our city stable and secure and safe and happy and prosperous, but at the same time recognize and be able to target those areas where we are failing to live up to the promises that this nation and this community have made to all of its citizens. And this is why I'm seeking to be your mayor, so that we can not only have a functional and effective city government again, but that we can make sure that that city government works for all people in New Bern. Thank you. I believe we have lost all of our moderators. Wendy, we cannot hear you now.
Let's try this again. Okay, just so we all know the rules, let's not talk about each other or how current things are going. Let's go forward on how we will, how you all will, what you're planning on doing for our city. How does that? We'll move forward, and hopefully Kathy will be with us soon. And Alderman Odom, take it away. Tell us about yourself.
Well, good afternoon. Sure. My name is Jeffrey Odom. I'm the alderman for the 6th Ward, have been for about 8.5 years now. I know, Wendy, you said we're not going to talk about things that's going on now, but it's kind of hard for me to not talk about things that's going on now when I've been a part of it for so long. I'm super proud of the accomplishments that the last 2 boards have made throughout our city. The first term in office, we had some tremendous accomplishments, some of those being reducing our utility rates 5 times, which is virtually unheard of when you have a municipal-owned utility. We've done a great job at keeping our tax rate low and revenue neutral every time we've passed a budget. We've done a good job at also closing the gap with some revenue gaps and some expenditures that we had. When I first got into office, we were facing almost a $3 million annual recurring shortfall. We were able to close that gap. We were able to put some great staff in place as well. We've had some tremendous department heads. Our current city manager came by way of a department head position as our Parks and Recreation Director, Foster Hughes. Since being in the role, he's done some tremendous things in both Parks and Recreation and the city as a whole. So our accomplishments are great. There's a long list of those. Again, it's not done by any one individual. It's not done by a mayor or by an individual alderman. It's done by a team. And that team requires leadership, and leadership helps bring folks together. And being able to get a majority of the board to make certain decisions and move in a certain direction and close on certain projects has been vital to the progress that we've seen in the city of New Bern over the last 8 years. Personally, I'm a lifelong New Bernian, born and raised right here in New Bern. My wife is as well. We're celebrating our 20-year wedding anniversary this year. My son Gavin will turn 13 this year, and I'm celebrating next month my 25th anniversary with my work. I work for the same employer for my entire professional career. Professionally, it's been a very rewarding career. I've had the opportunity to stay in New Bern, which has been great. I've had plenty of chances to leave, and I passed all of those up because I could not imagine living anywhere but New Bern. It's been a great time serving the citizens of New Bern for the last 8 years. As I've mentioned, we've had a lot of accomplishments. I've been able to meet a tremendous amount of people throughout the community, whether it's, Duffy Field to Taberna and all places in between. we've got a great city, and we've got a great city made up of great people. And I've had the opportunity to speak with hundreds of individuals over the years. I've sat in many of living room and dining rooms, sitting across the table from individuals who have had issues with city government, and we've worked through those issues. And I've always been responsive, I've always been accessible, and I've always been able to provide some answers to questions. It may not always be the question or the answer they would like to hear, but I promise people I'll always communicate with them, and I'm accessible to them. And I would continue to do so as your mayor. I am asking to be your mayor. I'm asking for your vote on May 17th because I do have the leadership. I'm the only candidate in this race who has both private sector experience as well as being an elected official. I understand what that balance is. I understand how to work between both of those different sectors. And again, I'll be able to bring some common sense business leadership to government just as I have over the last 8 years. And I look forward to serving as New Bern's next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Toussaint Summers.
Good afternoon. My name is Toussaint Summers Jr., and I'm asking to be the mayor of New Bern. First, I want to thank New Bern Now for this forum. As many of you know, I've had 44 years of public experience, all in law enforcement. The most recent 10 years with the city of New Bern as the chief of police. I started my retirement in summer of 2020, and I delayed that retirement based on an outcry from the community for me to stay in place until some of the tension that was going on around the country subsided. And so I finally retired in April of 2021. The reason I want to be mayor of the city is because I've gained a deep respect for our city and the people of this city. As chief of police, I have been in every ward, almost every community, had numerous conversations with citizens, a broad perspective for citizens. I am, by trade, as a law enforcement officer, what my training and my background is, obviously analyzing situations and solving problems. I have a bachelor's degree from American University, a master's degree from Virginia Commonwealth University, and I'm a graduate of the FBI Academy. But what I'm most proud of is the fact of my skills in relating to people and bringing people together. I served with the Department of Justice as a consultant, where I traveled the country from community to community, dealing with communities that had problems with their police agencies, problems between the police and between the community. And that has given me a great appreciation for people's opinion and understanding that maybe sometimes government gets it wrong and we need to really listen more. I feel that when we listen to each other, we have better outcomes. So I feel that my skill in analyzing situations, my skill in bringing people together, and especially skill in conflict resolution will aid me greatly as a mayor. You've heard my two peers talk about the mayor's responsibility as being a leader. We can't do it alone. We have to do it as a team, the mayor and the board. So I'm excited to get involved and to hopefully bring the city together where we can move forward, where I involve the community. My theme is community involved government. And that's what I intend to do. Be a good listener, involve the entire city in decision making as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay. That's all right. Well, I'm not sure what happened with Kathy, but I appreciate everyone's patience from our audience watching and the candidates. So let's move forward. And one of the questions, and all these questions are coming from the audience, what do you believe is the most important role of the city mayor? And okay, let's start off with Toussaint.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Obviously, it is the role of the mayor and the board of aldermen to set the agenda for the city. In other words, set the course, set the direction in which the city is is going to follow. So I think one of the most important roles for the mayor is to try to orchestrate that, try to make sure that the board of aldermen and the mayor are on the same page, but more importantly, try to make sure that we have uh, that we're carrying out the voice or the wishes rather of the community. That means we really have to listen and involve our community as much as possible into what they think. I think sometimes we get to the point where, as elected officials, that we sometimes think that we know. And as I told you before, traveling the country, when I would go to these communities, I would find out that a lot of times the government missed the mark. So it's important that we take time, that we listen to our community, find out the direction, their desired direction, and implement what their course of action as much as possible. Again, listening. I think listening and involving as many opinions as you can leads to better outcomes. Um, I realize that each ward has their own constituencies, and they're excited and anxious to carry out um, their plan or the wishes of their constituents. But we got to make sure that what we do is we strengthen the whole city by first attacking those issues that where we might see a weakness in our city, maybe a substandard community or a substandard condition in our community. Because if we can bring everybody up to the level that we expect our city to be, which is a great city, but bring everybody up to that level, that standard, so that we're not ashamed to carry anybody through any community in the city because we all on that same level. So again, I think the role of the mayor is working with the board to lead the city forward, including in that, and most important is to listen to our community.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And let's go for Mr. Harris.
The role of the mayor it changes in some cities, but in this particular city, the role of the mayor, aside from being chief executive of the board of aldermen, is a largely ceremonial position, technically. But in reality, the role of the mayor is vital. The mayor is the glue that holds the disparate factions of this city together. The mayor is the glue that brings that board of aldermen together and enables that board of aldermen to do all these other things that we talk about, like setting vision, determining strategic policy. I've lost my train of thought there. The mayor's function is to be that glue for the city, to reach out into the community, to be the glue that helps bind each individual together into this community, to be the glue that brings those wards together so that those competing ideas and those competing visions and goals that the various wards have can be brought together and compromise can be found, and middle ways can be found between the extremes so that the city can move forward as a whole, serving the needs of all of its people. The mayor is one of the most important, despite being largely ceremonial in the technical respect, one of the most important, any person who is elected to represent anyone is one of the most important, not one of the most important people, not in the sense of, oh, I'm so important, but in how much their role or how much the city depends on that mayor being who and what they need to be for the city. The mayor is that person who is supposed to bring, or supposed to be working to bring all of us together and helping point us in those common directions that our board of aldermen are. I'm losing my train of thought all the time on this one.
That's all right. That's all right, because we got to move on. And
I'm just going to cut it short right there.
okay. And Alderman Odom.
I believe that the number one job of the mayor of the city of New Bern should be the biggest cheerleader for our city. It should be someone who has roots, who is grounded, who understands what makes New Bern so special, and someone who can portray and be able to explain how special New Bern is, whether that is to visitors, whether it's to folks having a convention at the convention center, whether it's a developer that's looking to invest in our city. The mayor should be the number one cheerleader. They should understand the different facets of our city. They should understand the weaknesses. They should understand the strengths, and they should most importantly understand the opportunities and talk about those. And number two, the mayor has to be accessible. You have to be able to reach out and communicate with your mayor. I've done that as an alderman. I've been able to communicate a lot and frequently with my constituents. And I believe that a good mayor and a good elected official has a good sense in the pulse of whether it's the ward or the city or the constituents that they represent. And I believe a good elected official and a good mayor would have that, and you would know what direction your citizens and your community would like to go in. And then it's up to you as the mayor to help lead, guide, and direct the board into moving in that particular direction. I also believe that the mayor needs to be flexible. The mayor can't come in with preconceived notions on a particular idea or issue and not be willing to listen to your other Board of Aldermen members, because while you are the mayor and you're the middle seat, you still get one vote, just like every other member of the Board of Aldermen. And that one vote is no stronger, no powerful than any other vote of the member of the board. So that's what I believe the mayor of the New Bern is.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Are we
Kathy.
back again?
Kathy, can you hear us?
I can. Can you see me, hear me?
Both.
Okay. Things
Thanks.
went to junk. Oh, well.
That's
So,
okay.
I'm not going to touch anything. Don't touch anything. I'm so sorry to have had these technical difficulties with y'all.
Okay. With that said, I asked the question of, what was the question I asked? It was, what do you believe is the most important role of the city mayor? So that's where we are right now. So I'm going to leave you all.
Okay.
Thank you
But the
so
last
much.
time you left, things went awry. I hope if that happens again, I may just have to change my beverage.
Okay. I'll stay. I'll just
Are we
stay.
all here?
I'll stay in the corner there. So
Okay, stay in a corner so we don't have a problem. Okay, sorry about that. So we've talked about, you've introduced yourselves to the listening audience. You've talked about the role of a mayor. Is that correct?
It is.
Yes. I hope.
yes.
Okay, so here is the next question. The more that constituents, through their active community participation, can see that elected officials are willing to address issues of public concern, social cohesion is achievable. What is your specific strategy or strategies for community engagement to create a more cohesive, inclusive city and gain increased public trust? We will start with
How about Alderman Odom?
okay, Mr. Odom.
Sure. So I have an idea that I plan to present to the new board if I'm given the opportunity to lead as mayor. And that is to add a third meeting each month to the Board of Aldermen schedule. That third meeting would consist of nothing but petition of citizens and community discussion. And we would alternate that meeting location through the different wards throughout the city. We have 6 wards. There's 12 months in a year. So 2 months out of the year, we would be in Ward 1. 2 months out of the year, we would be in Ward 2, and so forth and so on until we completed the year. But that would give the citizens a good opportunity to interact with their government and their leaders, and do so in a comfortable setting within their community and within their ward. and it would be away from City Hall, and would have the opportunity to have some more interaction and communication. I believe that now we have our petition of citizens. It happens once a month. It happens at our first meeting, which is the second Tuesday of each month. Each citizen is given 4 minutes to say what they want. Oftentimes there's not interaction and communication back and forth because there are sometimes questions that are being asked that, we may not have answers to at the time. But I believe there's an opportunity to have more open dialogue and communication. So that is an idea that I would pitch to the new board and hopefully get support in doing so. And I believe that would interact or open up our interaction quite a bit with the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Mr. Summers?
Again, the theme of my campaign since August has been community involved government. And obviously, the more you get involved with the community, the more trust you build, and it increases your transparency. And I've been saying since August also that we need to get our government outside of City Hall walls. And we can do that by a number of ways. First and foremost, by communicating. Not saying that the current government don't communicate well, but let's see how we can communicate even better by use of our social media, by getting meetings such as Mr. Odom has mentioned in different communities, meeting with church groups, meeting with civic groups, meeting with a broad perspective of individuals, maybe homeowners groups. As I've been visiting homes during my meet and greets, I'll say I discovered, but I guess I should have known that there's a wealth of talent here in that city. There are people out here who have experiences in other places and they have retired here, or they have served as executives, city managers, master planners of cities that have ideas that we certainly can use and need to bring everybody with that expertise to the table and let them know that their opinions are important and that we want to hear what they have to say. And have I love that idea of extra board meetings. If we can get our other board members to agree to that would be great. But to increase public participation is a two-way street. Again, we got to come out and communicate better, but our community got to be willing to get involved too. They can't just sit back and say, "Well, you've been elected mayor, you've been elected alderman, you handle it." They have to be willing to get involved, willing to spend a little extra time to come to these meetings, to bring forth their ideas, and to build that trust so we can work together again. Maybe put together a nice strategic plan or I talked to one individual who thought a master plan for the city. That's a great idea. Let's get together and let's put these ideas on paper and let's move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, same question.
Everything that you just heard, they're all great ideas, and I like them all. I think that we need to, however, be a little bit less or a lot less officious about most of this. I love the idea of having extra meetings in the wards. Great idea. How about we not make them board meetings? How about we go out and we interact with them, with the people who live in those wards and the people who live in those communities, and not have the power to decide when we show up and who gets to talk and who does what. How about we just go out there and be with them, listen to them, sit with them, speak to them and hear from them, where they have the power, where they decide what the topics are, they decide who gets to talk. Mr. Summers is correct. It is a two-way street, and we do need to but that two-way street is something that we help build. We help build that by making sure that people understand that when they do come to us, they are going to get responsive, listening, engaged, active mayors and aldermen. That one of the reasons we see a disengagement and a lack of participation in this process is because too many people feel like it doesn't matter what they say, it doesn't matter what they think. If what they say or what they think doesn't accord with what current, with what a particular politician already believes or already has in their mind, then it's just going to get ignored. That perception creates this mistrust, this belief that they don't matter. We need to restore that. It is a two-way street, but we're the ones who build the street. We need to get back out into the communities. As mayor, you're going to see me everywhere. You're not going to be able to turn around. It doesn't matter what ward it's in. I was just down in Ward 2 the other day. I was down in Ward 3 the day before. I was in Ward 5 the day after that. You're going to see me everywhere. You're going to be tripping over me everywhere. You're not going to be able to go anywhere in this city without running into me. And this is the way all of our elected officials need to be all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is kind of a follow-up to the last question, and you've all touched on it, but I want to go a little deeper. So how, as a mayor, will you represent the diverse and distinct needs of the various wards equitably in our city, where real concerns about equity and inclusion exist? There are, as in any place in the world, there are multiple issues and concerns, but equity and inclusion seem to be a topic that has surfaced in our city recently in a strong way. So how will you as a mayor represent all of the diverse needs? And the needs in Taberna may be different from the needs in Ward 1, which may be different from Ward 2 and R and Ward 6. They're very distinct needs. How do you intend to provide equity as a mayor?
Mr. Summers?
First again, okay. Well, I have been, again, for the last several months going around talking about my vision of setting a baseline for a reasonable expectation of quality of life in the city of New Bern. That's one of the first things that I'd like to try to get our board to work on. Let's look at our city, the beautiful city that it is, and what is our minimum standard of quality of life we expect for everyone in our city in terms of storm water management, in terms of streets, in terms of recreation facilities, in terms of sidewalks, in terms of green space, public open space, in terms of fiber optics. What is that minimum standard? And let's brainstorm, let's bring our community in, and let's all set, this is what we believe our city should look like. This is what we believe our city should be. Once we establish that minimum standard, then let's scan our communities and let's see what communities fall below that minimum standard. And let's discuss openly, how can we bring those communities up to what we expect every community to be? Because when we strengthen our weakest community, then we have strengthened our entire city. What to say, an incoming tide rises all boats. That's what I hope to do. And, as far as inclusion, I think that would do that would go a long way toward inclusion. And I'll try to quickly say this. It concerned me the other day. I went to a community meeting in the Omega Center, which is in a heavily minority community. And I was shocked that there was only 2 minorities out of probably 70 to 100 people. And I asked myself, what is wrong here? What's going on here? And it's because obviously somebody don't feel like their opinion counts. And we need to make sure that we work on those folks to let everybody know that we're here to listen, that what you have to say is important, and everybody's opinion will be addressed at one point or another. Now, everybody's not going to get their way, but at least we got to show that we're willing to listen to everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
I would like to echo everything that Mr. Summers just said. I also would like to add that, and this actually, you're correct, this is very much part of the previous question. Diversity and equity and inclusion are matters that are in the news here and are in the public mind here in New Bern. They're in the public mind nationwide. I do support, for example, the New Bern People's Assembly proposal on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we do need to do a better job of targeting the things where we're not getting it right. We do need to have somebody focused on finding and rooting out and exposing and targeting those things that where we're not getting it right, so that we can fix it together. Part of the larger part of inclusion and the larger part of equity and people feeling as if we are, is whether or not people feel like they're being heard. And my question is, who among us, of these other mayoral candidates, is going to be out there with the people, speaking to them and hearing from them? Who among us is going to be out there with the people in the poorest parts of our city, in the richest parts of our city? This is how the people get a sense that what they think, what they feel, what they need is being heard. This is how people come to, and this is how we end up addressing issues around equity and inclusion, because unless you're hearing the problems, you're not able to fix them. And so you've got to get out there, and you have to, as I said earlier, you have to we have to build that two-way street. Unless a mayor and a board of aldermen are doing that, we're never going to fix our problems.
Thank you. The next question, and we'll start.
Wait. Alderman Odom, did you?
Oh.
You didn't. Just
Oh,
checking.
sorry,
Did
Jeff.
you didn't answer that, right? I'm just.
No,
maybe it's
I
me.
didn't.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, it's cool.
No problem. So appreciate the question. I think it's a valid one. It's certainly in today's climate, whether you're dealing with it on a professional level or whether it's at a civic level. Diversity and inclusion is very important. I think one thing we have to do is we have to maximize on the fact that we have a ward system in the city of New Bern to represent each one of those wards. The elected representative, the alderman that represents the diverse and the minority communities, should be coming forth and building relationships with other board members and other wards throughout the city. Because when you are in a minority ward, you need to garner support. And as the mayor, I would be one who would work with those individuals to go in their wards, just like I did throughout Hurricane Florence. The mayor and I remember vividly riding through Duffy Field, picking people up, taking them to the shelter. There were fire trucks with bullhorns going around to that particular community saying, you need to get out, danger is coming. You have to make sure that you put the focus on those areas that are underrepresented. And I believe we've done a good job at that. Could we do better? Sure, we can do better. As far as a plan to reach out, I mentioned this when the People's Assembly made their presentation to the board. Instead of looking at Raleigh and Durham and Atlanta and all these other places to try to pull people from, we need to stay local. We have a great community in New Bern. We need to make sure that our youth, whether they're black, brown, yellow, white, they need to understand that there's opportunities here. The city has put in a great program with interns, paid internships. I think that's great. But we also have to start younger than just high school. We need to start in middle school and elementary school and start talking to these folks and these children and letting them know there's opportunity in their city. Hello? They need to stay involved. So that would be my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Was that 3 minutes? Are we back?
We're back.
Okay, great. Thank you for those responses. The next question. The state of North Carolina municipal government was designed to have a strong manager system with the city manager running the city. The past two city managers were offered jobs by the board without the board advertising nationally or perhaps even statewide. Many citizens in our town have viewed these appointments as lacking transparency and failing to bring in the best candidates across the nation. And that is not to disparage those managers. Perhaps they would have been the best managers in our country. Do you agree or disagree with the lack of transparency of those appointments to the manager's position? And we'll start with Mr. Harris.
I absolutely do agree that there is a lack of transparency from our current board of aldermen. And again, like you said, that's not to say that the people who have been hired at the top levels of our city government weren't the most qualified people. I have no problems whatsoever with the jobs that they do. But city government must hold itself to a higher standard. It's not enough to just say, okay, well, we found the most qualified person. The question is, did you do so in a way that was transparent and that was equitable for everyone who might have wanted to apply for that, who might have wanted to be considered for that? And I know that there are some people who feel like we should be hiring local, hiring home. But the fact of the matter is that when it comes to hiring somebody who's going to run, for example, a city of 32,000 or so people, we have an obligation to not only get the best person, but we have an obligation to do so in a way that can be held up as a standard to everyone else, to all private businesses, to all public entities. When you are doing these kinds of things, this is the way you should be doing it. Because remember that a large part of what the Board of Aldermen and the mayor do are visible, symbolic things, in addition to all the actual work. That position is one that people look at. People in industry, in private industry, people in various sectors in this city, people, the population as a whole, they look at what their mayor and their aldermen do, and they're going to do the same. And we have an obligation to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I believe that we do need to be much more transparent and much more open and much more process driven about how we do these things in the future, so that we avoid the implication that there are systemic bias and good old boy networks at work. I'm not saying that there are, but the perception is that there are. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Mr. Odom, same question.
Yeah, first I'll say that the last two city manager hire positions were done differently. The second one, so not the current city manager, that was a process. It involved a community panel represented by different segments and factors of the community, both education, healthcare, business, and government. That was a panel that drove that decision making. Ultimately, the board makes the final decision, as we all know. Statutorily, that's how that works. But those recommendations were made by a panel of the community. This last hire, without getting into any personnel issues, I will say that I spoke very boldly and very publicly that I felt like the next board should have made the permanent hire for the city manager. And I still feel that should have been the decision that was made. However, when you are in this position and you're dealing with fellow board members and decisions are brought before you, you make decisions. And at the time, that was the best decision that I could have made. And I fully support our city manager in his endeavors now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Summers.
It appears that everybody seems to agree that it should be a professional employment process. So I certainly don't disagree there. Obviously, I am an example. I was recruited to the city of New Bern from a national search for police chiefs. That is the way that you should do it, especially for the top position in the city. You should advertise it and seek the best candidate possible. And that doesn't always necessarily mean there's going to be someone who don't live here. Again, I've ran across a lot of people who now live in this city who I think is even more capable of doing the job, more than capable of doing the job, not more capable, but more than capable of doing the job. I too have worked with Mr. Foster, and I think he's a very skilled administrator. But I do agree that those type of positions should be advertised nationally.
Thank you. We'll go on to the next question. We'll start with Mr. Odom. What should the relationship be between the city manager and the mayor? And is it a different relationship for the mayor and the city manager than the relationship between aldermen and the city manager?
I believe that the relationship between the mayor and the city manager should be a very close-knit partnership between the two individuals. I say that because ultimately it is the mayor that helps lead, guide, and direct the policy and decision makings for the board. That is a communication type position, a communicator or a conduit, if you will, between the board and leadership and management within the city. I think it's very important that that boundary not be overstepped, that the mayor never give unilateral decision or direction to the city manager, because they don't have the authority to do so. I think it's something, a relationship that should be a lot of communication. I believe that a good mayor and city manager relationship would require a conversation at least daily between those two individuals. If it's in the morning to talk about issues for the day, if it's in the afternoon to wrap up and talk about what happened during the day, there should be constant communication. I know that there's some board of alderman members that believe they should have that same level of communication. And if they desire that, I would have no issue with that happening. But oftentimes you'll hear from the alderman that, they get too much communication. I don't need to know everything that happened throughout the day. And I don't think the mayor needs to know everything that happens throughout the day. But as the face and the ceremonial head and figurehead of the city, you need to know the hot topics and things that's taking place. I do think it's important that they have that relationship. And as far as the rest of the remainder of the board of aldermen, I've never been one to step in and try to stop any sort of communication. But I do think it's very important that comment that I made earlier not only stands true for the mayor, but it stands true for the board of aldermen members, that individual members understand that the city manager doesn't work for you. They work for the board of aldermen as a whole, and not one individual member of the board can give direction to the city manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Summers, same question.
I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Odom. I think that we need to make sure that we don't occupy our city manager's time so much so that he can't do his job. I do feel that the city manager's obligation is to keep us informed of what's going on, especially hot button issues and daily issues of importance. Did somebody lose something?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. It is important that the mayor and the city manager have a good working relationship. And when I talked about going out, taking City Hall outside of City Hall walls, I think a lot of times, most every time that the mayor goes somewhere, he should, when all possible, bring the city manager along, but not to the point that he's occupying the city manager's time so much that he can't do his job. Make sure that you have clear directions, a good strategic plan, so that the city manager can have good direction on what needs to be done, so that we're not managing by crisis or managing today we're doing this and tomorrow we're doing that. So we need to give the city manager good, clear direction, and don't really worry too much on how he gets there, but just make sure he gets there.
Thank you. Mr. Harris.
I completely agree that the relationship between city management and the board of aldermen needs to be one that's close and one that has open communication both ways. However, as Alderman Jeff alluded, the fact of the matter is the board of aldermen collectively is the employer of the city manager, is the overseer of what the city manager does. And the city manager is a skilled person who's good at what they do. As a general management practice, and I'm like this, managing the people that I manage, I don't believe in looking over their shoulder. I don't believe in constant updates. What did you do in the last hour? What did you do today? What did you do? They're good at what they do. I'm going to let them do what they do. I'm going to keep my door open. If they got a problem, they can come to me and I can help them solve it. But other than that, I'm going to let them do what they do, because what we do is we hire that city manager to run the day-to-day operations of this city. And that's a busy job. I'm going to stay out of his way. I'm going to have my door open. I'm going to make sure that the board of aldermen collectively have that metaphorical door open at all times. But as the person responsible and as the board responsible for overseeing the city manager's work, we're going to get out of his way, let him do his job, and leave that door open.
Great. Guys, are we still here?
Yes.
Mhm.
I think your video,
Okay.
your video is frozen.
Somewhat of a follow-up to what the last question was. We have had in the last several years within our city seems like almost an exodus of top-level managers, public works, finance, economic development, development services. We currently do not have, I think we have the assistant manager taking an interim position or role at development services. A lot of people in our city ask why that is, and is it appropriate for the board to micromanage those department heads or staff? Do you think that happens? And if it does, is it appropriate or not appropriate? And that question will first start with Mr. Summers.
Obviously, it's not appropriate, and again, I'm not going to bash
I can't
anybody.
hear you. Can you hear?
You
We
can't
can
hear me?
you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
I cannot hear anything, Wendy. Just
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, so should I go on?
Yes, please.
Okay. Obviously, being a department head, I do a former department head, rather. I do understand the desire of our elected officials to stay informed, and it should be the department head's job to make sure that he keeps the board and the mayor informed on important issues. That being said, we hire professionals to do a job, and we need to do exactly what Paris said.
Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yes, we
Hello?
can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry. Mr. Summers, please continue.
We should do exactly what Mr. Harris said. Stay out of their way. I mean, they have the proper training, the proper education. If we did a job right in hiring the proper professional, I think a lot of times, though, what's lacking that sometimes may lead to micromanaging is no clear direction, no clear strategic plan, and sometimes managing by crisis. So we need to try to reduce that if we can, have a clear idea of the direction that the city is going, what our mission is, and then let our professionals do that job. So I guess to answer your question, no, I don't believe in micromanaging. And
Hello?
whether it happened before or not is probably not pertinent to now. We just don't want it to happen again in the future.
Great. Kathy, you still with us?
She's having the time.
Kathy, you still with us? Okay, let's see. We have okay, who started that out?
Toussaint did.
You did. Okay. My apologies. I was distracted. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Harris.
The question is
Hello?
presented.
Yep. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm not able to hear anybody.
Okay, Kathy, you need to leave and just come back in. Okay.
Sorry.
She can't hear you, so she can't do that.
I can't hear anybody.
Here, let's put it in the chat.
Okay, I apologize. Please continue.
The question that's presented points out an interesting conundrum that we have in the city right now. If people are leaving, if we have a lot of our top level management are fleeing the city, that comes down to one of two things. Either they're not satisfied with their job, or they're getting better opportunities elsewhere. And we need to figure out which one that is, because if we're losing talent, if we're hemorrhaging that talent out, just like I would in my business being an IT engineer and managing teams, if I'm hemorrhaging talent, if I've got developers jumping ship, I got to figure out why. And it only comes down to one of two things. The two reasons people do work for wages is their quality of life or their working conditions. So I think it's something that we need to, it's not simply, are they being micromanaged, because that can be an element of working conditions, but we have to look at, are they properly compensated? Are their quality of life and benefits packages appropriate to the work that they're doing? We do need to look at, are we micromanaging, or do we have dissatisfaction within the upper ranks because of the elected Board of Aldermen and Mayor? These are all questions that we very much need to address, because you have to find where the problem is before you can just start throwing solutions at it. I don't know that, I have not heard any one of those people tell me that micromanagement is the reason why. Although that is very oftentimes an element of dissatisfaction with working conditions. But it's important for us, and we definitely do need to address this dissatisfaction, and in whatever form it comes from, whatever's causing it in our upper management of our city. Otherwise, we're just going to keep losing that talent. And if it's, all right, she's waving me off. It's all in right there.
Okay. All right. Alderman Odom.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and it was also sort of led, to be honest with you, to say that people are being micromanaged. As everybody on this screen knows, smart individuals here on this call today knows that there's more than one side to every story. I personally, as an elected official, have not seen one single exit interview by any employee that's left. I have spoken with some employees when they've left. I know that many have left for better opportunities, just like Mr. Summers came here from a different locale. He came here because there was an opportunity in New Bern for him to come here. If you take a look at, it's interesting, I had a news reporter call me last week and asked me to do an interview about a particular topic. And I called her back, and come to find out she was leaving the next day. This is a stepping stone area. New Bern is a market that, especially in media, people use it as a stepping stone to move on to bigger and better things. When I take a look at some of the individuals that have come and gone without getting any personnel issues, which I'm not really privy to, because the majority of them don't report to the City of New Bern Board of Aldermen, they report to the city manager. But the finance director is one that you mentioned specifically. The finance director position is one that we had nationwide searches for, and we had strict criteria that each one of them met. And there's been quite a bit of turnover in that particular position. So I just say that to explain that there's a lot of facets when it comes to employment and management of employees, something that I've done throughout my professional career for many years. And you're going to have turnover. Mr. Summers is certainly well aware of it. The police department is one that, nationwide historically has quite a bit of turnover. It's something you have to deal with, especially in a market like New Bern, where you do have a population of 32,000. The key is that you hire the right and the best and most qualified people, put them in the roles, allow them to do their job, but make sure they are committed to the job that they do. Make sure that they're invested in the community and that they want to be here. If someone doesn't want to be here, and they've used this as an opportunity, a stepping stone, as I said, to move somewhere else, then it's the best thing for them to do to move on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Are you with us, Kathy? Can you hear us?
Sorry about that.
You can hear us?
I'm back in the world here.
Okay. Well, they just answered your last question. So
excellent.
We're right on
Very
track.
Good. All right. It's now 2:00, so I would like to ask the candidates if they have additional time. We still have a few more questions, but I'm not sure whether you had asked for an hour of their time, and I'd like to respect that.
I did ask for an hour, but if you are willing to hang tight for a few more minutes, it's strictly up to you.
I am. I have a hard stop at about 2:25 because I have to be ready for a meeting 5 minutes
Okay.
after that.
Thank you. So 2:25, anyone else? All right, we have a hard stop at 2:25 then. If we, I think we'll be fine. Another question. The city has just opened the Martin Marietta Park. It is an incredible, beautiful site, which will continue to be an attraction to citizens and visitors alike. That said, there is little to no green space or public space for citizens in the downtown except Union Point. Great cities have great public spaces within communities for people to walk, talk, exercise, and enjoy beauty. Do you have any thoughts about actively increasing the public green spaces for citizens throughout New Bern's neighborhoods, especially those in floodplains, which may open up opportunities for parks? And we'll start with, are you keeping me on track?
Mr. Harris?
Mr. Harris, I think,
Yes.
yes.
I absolutely support the increase of green space everywhere in this city. I have said this before and I'm on the record. The arteries of a city, of a community, are not our roads. They're the green space. This is where our community comes together. This is where our community becomes that thing that we call a community, a society of people who live in this area and choose to live together amongst one another. That green space is absolutely essential to that. And I am committed to maximizing the amount of green space we can have in every single ward, usable green space we can have in every single ward, consistent with population and usage levels. Ancillary to that, for example, I am on the record, I am absolutely against the sale of Union Point Park. We must take additional measures to ensure that later boards, later mayors don't have that temptation to try to do away with Union Point Park for two reasons. One, because it's a beautiful park and because it belongs to the city of New Bern in a way that's somehow more than simply a matter of title and deed, but also because green space and you mentioned floodplains. We have a lot of areas down around our rivers that could be turned into riparian buffers if we were making efforts to maximize green space. And these riparian buffers are absolutely necessary so that we don't end up like in Hurricane Florence, when so many of us had to spend hours and hours in the night out in the deep flooded parts of the city. Green space is absolutely essential to the life of the city, to the lifeblood to this community, and I am committed to its maximization.
Thank you. Mr. Odom.
Yes, we have a land use plan and we follow that, requiring certain green space, especially for new developments and new neighborhoods, for example. That's why when you ride through some of the newer neighborhoods throughout the city, you will see green, open, common space. That is a requirement as part of our land use plan. With respects to our parks, we have 27 parks right now in the city of New Bern. When you take a look at 27 parks in 6 wards, that gives you quite a few parks per ward. But interestingly enough, we have some wards without a park. Ward 6 is one that does not have a park, but we do have green space. I believe that it's imperative for the city of New Bern to follow a master plan, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions through several of these forums. We need a strategic plan, and that includes one that talks about green space and talks about our future and development opportunities. We have a plan like that in many departments, but not all departments, and we don't have one citywide. And that's something that should be part of the plan to ensure that we maximize that opportunity. But as you mentioned, Martin Marietta Park is going to be a tremendous asset for not only the citizens, but the region. And I believe it's going to eventually become a regional draw. We are looking to put an amphitheater there with a lot of grassy plain areas there to maximize that. And you're going to see people coming from all over the state to come to Martin Marietta Park to enjoy that park and the amenities that we're going to offer for, again, not only our citizens, but the region.
Thank you. Mr. Summers.
Yes, I would like to take Mr. Harris and Mr. Odom's answer and put it all together, and I have a great answer, combining their answers, and just add that I would also like to, that plan that Mr. Odom talked about, I'd like to dust it off a little bit and take another look at it. And more importantly, make sure we communicate that to our citizens. We have so many plans and so many things that we're doing right. I mean, our board's doing so many things right, but maybe we're not necessarily getting it out to our community that they are aware of it. And I know it's a difficult thing to do. And finally, I've been in communities, again, I've worked in 3 different governments, this being the 3rd, and I've been in communities where the city is very well connected through hiking and bike and sidewalk trails. And I'd like to see that done in the city, where you can get from one part of the city, where you can get from the News or Union Point Park all the way over to Martin Marietta Park. Wouldn't that be great? That'd be something really nice. So I support open space, obviously support Union Point Park, support green spaces.
Thank you. A hot topic that is emerging in our city right now is a proposal about social It's a social drinking district, and the ability of municipalities to create such districts. The newly elected board of aldermen with the new mayor will likely vote on that issue. Do you think that that a social drinking district, meaning being able to take wine and beer under the streets of those districts, primarily in the downtown area, as currently proposed on the Swiss Bear website, is a good idea for preserving the historic charm of our downtown? And we'll start with Mr. Odom.
I don't believe that you can limit that and say, does that particular change do anything to the historic charm of downtown? I believe that downtown looks a lot different, and I know it does because I was here. It looks a lot different today than it did, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Things change, things evolve, and I believe it would be behooving to the board to listen about all these proposals and have that interaction and communication. I've heard that the proposal is quite extensive. It's proposed to be 7 days a week. I believe that there can be a compromise found to accomplish the objectives from both the business community as well as ease the concerns of the residents downtown. We have to understand that, as I said, things evolve, downtowns evolve. I was in Goldsboro last week and went to lunch downtown, and I was quite surprised at how much Goldsboro has changed with some investment downtown. Do I think that the streets of New Bern need to be open 24/7 to social drinking, where someone can take a glass of wine from one store to another? No, I don't believe that should be the case. Do I believe there's an opportunity, like we've done with the dining in the streets? Also, when we close the streets for New Year's Eve for the block party, there is drinking that's allowed in certain barricades in certain areas and parameters. And I believe that there's an opportunity to find compromise. As the plan is presented today, I could not support the plan as it is today, but I do believe it's worthwhile to have some additional conversation and find some compromise.
Thank you. Mr. Summers.
Well, I'm just excited. Again, I hate to keep going back to community-involved government and getting our community involved. I'm just so excited that this isn't an issue that we're discussing first instead of just, for lack of a better phrase, forcing it down our community's throat. And I'm happy to see that our communities get involved. And I hope that our community can keep a level head and be civil as we discuss these type of matters, because that's the only way we learn. We got to always listen to one another. And I believe, like Mr. Odom said, that we can probably come up with a reasonable compromise somewhere along the line. So I too, given the way that it's laid out now, do not support it in terms of the proposed boundaries of it and also the proposed time. But I think it's a work in progress. And again, I'm just so appreciative that we're having the conversation and would like to see us do that more often with other issues.
Thank you. Mr. Harris. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Had to unmute myself there.
Oh,
I support this idea 100% as it's presented right now. And this goes, I think, to a little bit of my philosophy of what a government is supposed to do. It's not the business of government to tell an adult what they can and cannot do that's not affecting other human beings. So as far as I'm concerned, the city never had a right to tell people they couldn't walk around with alcohol anyway. So let's go ahead and peel that back as much as we can. This is we've, as Alderman Jeff mentioned, we do things like blocking off the streets downtown for restaurants to use. We do allow drinking there. It's fundamentally unfair to other organizations, to other other organizations in the hospitality industry to say, well, we're going to let them do it, but we're not going to let you do it, especially when it doesn't even involve us blocking off sections of the streets. We're not preventing all the other citizens from using the road that they own. We're just allowing some citizens who choose to do so to exercise their right to do what they like that doesn't harm any other person and not be accosted by agents of the government for it. So yes, I support it 100%.
Thank you for the responses. I know we have a hard stop within 20 minutes. We have a hard stop in 10 minutes. So I would like to go to closing remarks. Each candidate will have 4 minutes, and that may go over, but so we'll start with Mr. Harris. Closing remarks to let the citizens of New Bern know why you should be mayor and why they should vote for you. We'll start with Mr. Harris, who has a hard stop in 10 minutes.
As for closing remarks, to the city of New Bern, as I said in my opening remarks, I am asking for your vote for mayor because I believe that we need a mayor who is in tune with all elements of the city, who understands the needs and concerns of all elements of the city and understands how to be a receptive vessel to the needs and concerns of the city itself without judgment or predisposition. We need a mayor who has the ability to unite this city, to be the glue that I talked about between the wards, between the aldermen. We need a mayor who has the ability who has the vision and the mindset necessary, the flexibility and adaptability around a central set of core principles who can take us into the next 4 years at a minimum. It's something I think it tends to get forgotten that it's important who we elect because we have them for 4 years. We don't have a recall law here in New Bern, and that's another thing I support. I intend to leave the office of mayor. When I do leave it, I intend to leave it weaker than I found it. Because I believe that we need a mayor who understands that this job isn't about how much power can be accumulated in an office. This job is about how much power can be returned to the people. This is why I support recall elections. And I think we need to have a recall law here in New Bern. This is why I support, for example, the Police Civil Service Board, strengthening it, separating it from the power of the aldermen, taking away the appointment power to that board. And giving that board significantly more authority over our law enforcement community and oversight of law enforcement functions in this city. I'm a man who believes that the city should decide how the city lives its life. That it's not the government's job to decide how we live our lives. It's not the Board of Aldermen's job to decide who gets to do what with whose property where. We have had in the past across North Carolina and across the nation and in the city, we have had overreach from our elected officials. And this is something that you're never going to see from me as a mayor. This city and the people who live here should be the people who decide how they live and how they want to live. And that's what I intend to leave to this city is a mayor and a board of aldermen and a city government in general that has done its level best to make sure that everybody's aspirations, everybody's goals, and everybody's dreams, that all these things we did our best to make sure that they had the most opportunity, that they had the most chance to arrive at that. But at the same time, when I leave this office, I intend to leave this board of aldermen, this mayor, this city government with less power in your life. And it's a two-way, it's a balancing act. The less power we have in your lives, the more power you have in your own. And that is where it's supposed to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Closing remarks, Mr. Odom. Let the citizens know why you should be mayor.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Wendy, for putting on this program today. Any opportunity that I've had throughout this campaign to talk about accomplishments, talk about how we partner together with the community has been extremely beneficial. I think it's helpful for the citizens and the constituents to be able to know who they have to choose. All three of us that have participated today have presented very different platforms. We come from different backgrounds, and we have different ideas and thoughts about how the city should be led. There's one candidate that has participated today that has the benefit of private sector experience as well as being an elected official. I'm the only one that has that capability. I understand what it means to sit in that seat and make those decisions, understand how it's, to interact with the public, balance that opportunity to make decisions, get public input. And you can reach out to any constituent in Ward 6 and they will tell you that for the last 8 years, I have been more than accessible and more than open and more than willing to meet with them and discuss with them any concerns or issues they may have. That would continue if I'm given the opportunity to serve my hometown as mayor. I think it's important to recognize that endorsements don't necessarily mean a lot in political races, but I am the only candidate that is unanimously endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police. That means that those men and women that participate in that organization recognize what I've done to support them and would continue to support them throughout my tenure as mayor. It's important to recognize that a mayor needs to be capable, which I have proven to be, consistent, which my record shows, and also being able to communicate openly, capable, consistent, and being able to communicate. Those are very important aspects that you need in a mayor. I have offered all those to the citizens of Ward 6, and I would be more than happy and honored and privileged to offer that to the city of New Bern. And I thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Odom. And our last closing remarks, Mr. Summers.
Again, thank you, Kathy and Wendy. I think this was a great opportunity. I would like to just address one thing real quick. Mr. Odom mentioned the FOP. If we really look at it, it was a committee that endorsed him. I have spoken to many members of the FOP who were not happy with that decision, but that's not neither here or there. This is a nonpartisan election, and I'm here not to only represent the police, but represent the entire community, the citizens of New Bern. I am the only candidate that have worked in government for 44 years. So I know the internal workings of a government as a first line government worker up to a manager. I've been a part of executive teams in 2 governments. I've seen different ways that governments can work. Sometimes you only know what you know. Well, I've seen how it can be done in different ways. I have had exposure throughout this country working with different governments, helping to solve problems. I think, again, I would like to refer to my skill in analyzing problems and conflict resolution and bringing people together. I think that's very important in any leader. A leader should not be geared toward trying to have it his or her way, but a leader should be open to listening, making sure that you take into account all points of view as possible. And I feel that my most important attribute is my interpersonal skills, and that's derived from my true love for people. I have a love for people. I have a love to listening to people. I'm a careful listener. I enjoy consensus building. I enjoy bringing people together for a common goal. I'm patient. I don't see value in conflict. I don't see value in challenging one another. I don't see value in fighting. I'd see value in sitting down and discussing issues with an open mind. And that's what I bring to the table. And that's what I plan to do as mayor. Because when we find common ground to work together, we always have better outcomes. And that's what I intend to do as mayor. And I just would appreciate everyone's vote, everyone's support. But I want to remind folks, if I am successful as mayor, it doesn't stop at the vote. It stops with you getting involved with your government. Thank you.
Thank you all. I would like now to thank New Bern Now and their managing editor, Wendy Card, for providing this opportunity for the citizens of New Bern. The more information citizens have, the better informed they are when they go to the ballot box. Again, forgive me for the technical difficulties of my little phone. And I appreciate you all for understanding. Thank you.
We made it. We made it. And I can't, Kathy, I can't thank you enough for moderating this. I really, I feel we want to have an unbiased, the questions came from citizens. There are a couple questions that weren't answered, but we apologize, but I encourage you to reach out to every individual on the screen here. That's one thing if you can please, let's start with Mr. Summers. Can you tell people how to reach you? Yeah, I forgot. Can you hear me?
I think people have left the show. I think we're.
Yeah, I'm unmuting.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, we're
Okay.
Yeah, probably the best way to contact me is through my friendsofsummers.com. And I will certainly respond to any questions. Definitely don't want to have you try to phone tag me because a lot of times I'm busy and I can't answer, but I definitely will eventually get back to your emails.
Okay. And Alderman Odom.
Sure. You can check out my website, jeffreyodham.com, JEFFREYODHAM. You can email me at Jeffrey, JEFFREY, at jeffreyodham.com. You can call me. My number is 252-649-4285. You can call me at home. That number is 252-636-5338. Or you can stop by my house. I'm there sometimes I'm not, but I live at 5003 Morton Road. We are going to be planning to have an open house, another one at our house before the election. It's great to have, it's great to get out in the community, but it's also great to open our home and let the constituents and citizens come visit with us in our environment. So I'll be looking for that announcement coming soon. Thank you again.
Okay. And Mr. Harris.
Yes, you can send me an email at campaign@timharris.org. I'm always easy to find. My regular personal email address as well is tim@timharris.org. You can reach out to me through the Facebook page, Tim Harris for New Bern. Or you can send me a text message, 919-201-2602. If you leave me a voicemail, I'm probably not going to get it. So I would suggest you send me a text message. I'll see that a lot quicker.
Okay. Well, I can't thank all of you enough. Thank you to our audience for watching. And please feel free, if you have any other comments or questions, email info@newbernnow.com. I thank everyone. And I wish you all the best and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye. Yay, have a nice. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.